I continue to say the master of good timing, the master of good timing, the beneficiary of the best timing in the history of the sport is Conor McGregor. And I'm telling you, we told you about the meeting 2 weeks ago. I told you it went well. PT told you it went well. At this point, I think it would be safe to say that it would be a disastrous situation. Something disastrous would have had to have happened if he's not fighting on July 11th. They need this now more than ever. They need Conor McGregor to be on this card. They need the posts, they need the social, they need all of that. They need people talking, they need people getting excited. They need this guy now more than ever, and they have to do everything in their power to make this happen.
Conor McGregor is coming back. Guys, I'm very confident of this. I spoke to Conor myself. Audacious went and had a meeting, a face-to-face sit-down with the UFC, because it got to the point where Conor's side is saying, hey, do you guys not think we're serious? Or is it you guys aren't serious? There's a little confusion here over the telephone. Let's talk, right?
The persistent whispers and fervent hopes of millions have crystallized into undeniable reality as Conor McGregor prepares his octagon return. Whether you're a devoted fan who's waited patiently, a skeptical critic questioning his abilities, or an opponent considering the terrifying possibility of facing him, there's an unmistakable shift permeating the UFC atmosphere. This transcends a simple fight announcement, becoming a cultural phenomenon that electrifies fans while sending chills down the spines of elite fighters who may encounter the notorious one. The entire combat sports ecosystem has become exponentially more dangerous, volatile, and genuinely frightening for everyone within striking distance.
Not just that Conor's not going to fight Michael Chandler, but why Conor's not going to fight Michael Chandler. Now look.
Conor's monumental comeback immediately raises the colossal question of who will stand opposite him when that cage door slams shut. Michael Chandler's name circulated endlessly, but alternative paths are being discussed with compelling explanations behind these strategic decisions. This isn't about disrespecting Chandler's warrior status or proven killer instincts, but understanding the intricate business chess moves happening at the highest levels. The fear isn't limited to opponents being terrified of facing McGregor directly. It encompasses the massive ripple effect his presence creates throughout the entire UFC ecosystem, where every fighter's trajectory, plans, and title aspirations get fundamentally altered when this phenomenon returns, leaving everyone's career promises hanging precariously in the balance.
And like any great company, they will stick to that promise in good times and in bad. When you're selling out arenas, when COVID hits and you can't do it in front of everybody, you got to stick to that promise. And the UFC does. Now, how does that pertain to Conor?
The brand promise reveals fascinating insights into the UFC's core philosophy when navigating the return of a transcendent global superstar like McGregor. They're not merely promoting fights and filling arenas, they're safeguarding a colossal brand built over decades while maintaining unwavering standards through any circumstances. This brand promise intersecting with a fighter who transcends the sport itself requires absolutely meticulous, surgical precision in orchestrating his reintroduction. Beyond creating spectacular entertainment or generating buzz, they're protecting their carefully cultivated legacy while simultaneously harnessing the unprecedented star power of their most valuable asset. This level of calculated strategic planning and ruthless decision-making creates genuine intimidation for absolutely everyone involved in the situation.
Conor McGregor is in a very unique spot because of the success that he has previously had. We are questioning how good is Conor today. We're questioning how good can he be today. He's coming off a catastrophic injury.
Here lies the absolute crux of the McGregor enigma, keeping everyone awake at night. His past success remains undeniably etched in combat sports history permanently, but the present moment creates a colossal question mark, shrouded in uncertainty. A catastrophic leg injury that was brutal to witness, an extended layoff stretching years. These aren't minor footnotes, but monumental challenges that would completely end most fighters' careers. While opponents genuinely fear McGregor's legendary aura and era-defining knockout power, they're also desperately aware of significant vulnerabilities that could be exposed. The terror isn't just losing a fight, it's being the fighter who definitively reveals whether the unstoppable Conor is gone forever, or if he can miraculously rise above these obstacles to reclaim his throne, with stakes reaching astronomically high levels rarely witnessed in this sport.
On the shelf. So we question how good he is, but we've got to operate under the assumption that he's pretty damn good, considering he won an interim and undisputed and went 30 minutes with Floyd. Like, we have to assume, based on what he's done before.
6 years away from active competition represents an absolute eternity in this lightning-fast sport where entire careers blossom, peak, and fade into obscurity. Yet you must operate under the fundamental assumption that he remains exceptionally skilled at his craft. His resume stands absolutely unparalleled with interim titles, undisputed championships across multiple weight classes, and 30 full minutes in the boxing ring with Floyd Mayweather, arguably the greatest boxer ever. This stark contrast between his extended layoff and monumental achievements makes his return utterly compelling for fans and absolutely terrifying for potential opponents. Are they facing a diminished legend past his prime, or a fully recharged McGregor burning with insatiable hunger to prove himself and silence doubters? The psychological warfare begins long before the cage door closes, and this gnawing uncertainty about which version appears becomes a powerful weapon itself.
Lead us. Now, Conor versus Chandler, and it breaks my heart that this isn't getting done, largely just on a personal level to see like what Chandler went through, and Conor himself, I gotta give him credit, has tried to keep that.
The entire Ultimate Fighter buildup was meticulously crafted to culminate in a narrative payoff of epic proportions that would captivate the world, but devastating injuries altered those plans completely. The strategic implications reach far beyond one fight, as this represents McGregor's carefully orchestrated grand re-entry to the pinnacle where he once reigned supreme. The emotional weight of the Chandler saga and dedicated season was expertly designed for massive narrative payoff. Conor's genuine attempts to honor that commitment to Chandler reveals his character and integrity, showing respect for their shared journey. However, bigger picture business interests and his monumental legacy might necessitate a different, potentially more impactful path forward in this cold hard business where sentiment takes a backseat to strategy, and the show must undeniably continue regardless of who gets left behind.
They had a media tour, they had a back and forth, it turned personal. They did The Ultimate Fighter, which to this day has been the greatest marketing vehicle in the history of our industry, not just the company. That was supposed to be the payoff. The problem is 2.5 years has gone by.
2.5 years represents an absolute eternity in the fast-paced, ever-evolving combat sports world where trends change overnight. The Ultimate Fighter with Conor coaching was a marketing masterpiece, brilliantly building unparalleled anticipation throughout the MMA community, but time waits for no one. The carefully constructed narrative, intense build-up, and simmering coaching animosity inevitably dissipates over such extended periods. For Conor to truly return to menacing dominant form and recapture that magic, while the UFC maximizes his gargantuan impact, they must hit the complete reset button and start fresh. Beginning at step 1 means discarding old plans entirely, forging audacious new strategies from scratch, potentially leaving eager contenders wondering what happened, while making the entire competitive landscape incredibly uncertain and unstable for everyone else.
And on step 1, that's where Chandler does not become the perfect opponent. Because Chandler, we also don't know how many miles does that car have left.
This brutal but honest assessment of Michael Chandler's position in the McGregor return equation cuts deep. While Chandler is universally recognized as a crowd-pleasing warrior delivering exciting fights consistently, critical questions about his mileage and accumulated wear fundamentally alter this matchup dynamic against a comeback. Conor looking to reclaim his throne. If the overriding goal involves effectively relaunching McGregor as a legitimate championship threat, then his chosen opponent must elevate him without being perceived as past their prime or declining. This transcends entertaining fights, focusing on strategic matchmaking for combat sport's biggest star where every detail matters crucially. This ruthless strategic thinking and cold calculation keeps every division contender on razor's edge, wondering who receives the golden ticket and who might get fed to the returning lion.
to the brand promise, and we're going to bring in Conor McGregor, who we identify as very good, and by the way, we do know to be a main eventer.
This statement confirms what everyone instinctively knows in their gut. Conor McGregor, regardless of lengthy layoffs or recent setbacks, remains a main event fighter, period. This isn't solely about octagon fighting ability, but his unparalleled drawing power, magnetic personality, and revenue-generating capacity like no other fighter in sport history. The UFC's brand promise dictates their biggest stars headline, the grandest shows on the biggest stages, and Conor remains the undisputed king of that mountain without question. This absolute certainty about his main event status becomes a potent double-edged sword for everyone else, as prime spots on major cards are inherently taken before discussions begin. Coveted title shots might face indefinite delays, and entire lightweight and welterweight divisions shift around the gravitational pull of the notorious one, while every top 10 fighter remains on immediate high alert.
And basically, you could choose, by the way, guys, I'm going to say 1 through 6. You could even go 1 through 8. Pick anybody you want to do. Della Maddalena makes a lot of sense. I think that Ian Gary was more than a Freudian slip. I think that there's some real traction and some real legs to that. I don't think the idea of Islam and title fights is going to happen. I don't believe that Max is going to bump up and we're going to pay.
This represents the absolute heart of the matter, the electrifying and simultaneously terrifying list of potential dance partners for Conor's highly anticipated return. The prospect of him fighting literally anyone ranked 1 through 8 at lightweight or welterweight creates thrilling and horrifying possibilities in equal measure. Names like Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, or Ian Gary represent rising stars and legitimate division killers where a McGregor fight would instantly legitimize their entire careers, catapulting them to superstardom or potentially derailing them spectacularly if they lose badly. The deliberate exclusion of Islam Makhachev from immediate title consideration, or Max Holloway moving up weight classes, reveals strategic thinking about carefully mapped paths designed to rigorously test Conor's abilities while building fresh, compelling narratives. Every name mentioned or strategically excluded sends chilling messages to the entire roster about what's approaching.
I think Conor is likely to be put into a spot, and I'll use Anderson Silva as a great example, who is the best fighter in the world, the champion of the world, had the exact same catastrophic leg injury, attempted to make a comeback. And it was an interesting position because Anderson was great, and Anderson had the rankings, and he had the name, he had the meaning, and he was a main event guy.
The Anderson Silva comparison provides brilliant and profoundly stark implications, offering real-world precedent for a legendary fighter returning from an identical catastrophic leg injury everyone witnessed. Silva maintained main event status and UFC respect despite his horrific injury, but crucially lost his pay-per-view main event status at the highest level. This distinction proves absolutely critical for understanding what the UFC might have meticulously planned for Conor's comeback. They'll undoubtedly respect his immense legacy and contributions while shrewdly protecting their long-term business model and brand promise to fans. The underlying fear for aspiring fighters isn't just facing Conor in the cage, but witnessing how a legend gets strategically placed on cards, potentially blocking their own paths to those highly coveted, career-defining pay-per-view main events reserved for title fights.
So they paid Anderson all those same respects, and they kept him as a main event in his last fight, just to remind you, instead of being in front of a sold-out Mandalay Bay or a record-setting MGM crowd like he was used to.
If the most lucrative pay-per-view main events remain largely reserved for undisputed championship fights, and if Conor isn't immediately fighting for a title, then his initial return might look drastically different from previous stadium filling, record-breaking spectacles that captivated the world. The vivid image of Anderson Silva fighting at the Apex on a fight night card rather than a sold-out arena pay-per-view serves as a powerful indicator of possibilities. While Conor's drawing power remains immense and probably unmatched, the UFC might initially place him in situations that, while still prestigious main events, aren't the grandest imaginable stages like his previous returns. This strategic decision would keep everyone guessing about what comes next while maintaining uncertainty throughout the competitive landscape.
But they kept him as a main event, and they put him with a killer known as Uriah Hall, and that was kind of used to elevate Uriah. If Anderson could have stood his ground and he could have found a way to win, he could return to that same spot and he could continue to be a main event over there. I believe it.
This perfectly illustrates the ruthless yet effective strategic thinking within the UFC's matchmaking machine, using returning legends to catapult promising contenders into stardom's stratosphere. Uriah Hall possessed devastating knockout power, and victory over an icon like Anderson Silva would have proven absolutely monumental for his career trajectory and earning potential. This precisely exemplifies what everyone's scared signifies in this context. Fighters like Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, or Ian Gary fully understand that a McGregor fight isn't merely another bout on their record, but a career-defining, potentially life-altering opportunity that comes once in a lifetime. It's their chance to claim everything he's built while facing incredibly high-risk, high-reward scenarios against a man who, even if slightly diminished physically, still possesses unparalleled knockout power and indomitable mental fortitude that's carried him through wars.
And I believe that's very similar with Conor. I believe he's going to get dealt from the bottom of the deck, but I think you have to. I think the only way that you could justify it is to give somebody else an opportunity to take it all. It's the ultimate poker hand at all times in MMA. Whatever you got, you are all in.
That chilling phrase suggests Conor will face truly formidable top-tier challenges right out of the gate, not some easy comeback fight. The underlying reasoning proves undeniably sound, making perfect strategic sense as the only way to genuinely justify the immense spectacle and global attention his return generates, while providing another fighter that monumental opportunity to take everything from him. This represents the ultimate poker hand in MMA, where a single fight can irrevocably define legacies for both men involved. Every hungry division fighter knows this in their core, feeling it in their bones. They're not just scared of Conor's return and its implications, they're terrified of missing the chance to become the person who takes everything from him, becoming the man who beat McGregor, or conversely being the one who falls short and inadvertently adds another glorious chapter to his legend under immense pressure.
Conor was willing to fight Protas. He's willing to fight Chandler. He would like to pay that off. Red Panty Night's still real. He'd made an agreement with Chandler, did his best to give it to him. I think there's legs to Ian Gary. My partner's thrown out JDM. I don't hate that idea. I think the idea of you take anybody 1 through 8, 1 through 6, and you grab any one of them, right? Like that's still McGregor. He's got to prove that he can stand his ground or he can't. And if he can't, then that passes to somebody else. But that's the way that this is going to be played. It's not all of a sudden going to get switched into, all right, we're going to have fun.
Conor's agreement with this brutal assessment about being dealt from the bottom reveals where his true terrifying mindset shines through, making him both incredibly captivating and utterly formidable as a competitor. This isn't a man seeking soft landings or easy paydays to pad his bank account, but a pure warrior who thrives on the most extreme challenges the sport offers. His nonchalant attitude towards high-stakes, inherently dangerous returns explains precisely why every potential opponent should feel absolutely terrified about stepping in there with him. He's not returning merely for money or fame, but for the primal thrill of competition, the ultimate challenge of proving himself, and an unyielding desire to demonstrate his enduring greatness to the world. That kind of unadulterated hunger and raw desire creates an incredibly terrifying force to face.
Going to have to fight, and he's made his own demands. By the way, he wants harder fights. He don't want to go to 55. He wants to stay at 70. He don't want to cut weight. He's willing to go to 85.
This single statement encapsulates the fundamental truth of Conor McGregor's imminent return. This won't be some nostalgic exhibition fight, guaranteed box office victory against a nobody, or leisurely stroll down memory lane for old fans. He genuinely stands willing to face a murderous row of the sport's elite, the absolute best killers the division offers, from Dustin Poirier to Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, and Ian Gary, literally anyone in that top 8 ranking. This explicit declaration directly counters any notion that he's returning for easy fights or ceremonial appearances. This represents a man ready to gamble his entire legacy, everything he's built, against the very best the sport currently offers. Every single top 8 fighter just heard a direct, undeniable challenge thrown down, and that explains why the entire landscape teeters on edge, why everyone's discussing this phenomenon, and why Conor McGregor remains the single most intimidating and talked about force in combat sports today.
The last thing, and one of the reasons that Conor gained so much sincerity and credibility with me, is he didn't even care about the weight. He just wanted to compete. So I'm just sharing with you, if you're attempting to guess and Conor's coming back, you're going to get McGregor, and you're going to get him soon.
Conor's demands aren't for easier matchups, favorable opponents, preferential treatment, or special circumstances, but for harder fights, and his audacious willingness to compete at 170 pounds or aggressively move up to 185 pounds speaks volumes about his profound confidence and the incredibly serious nature of this comeback. This isn't about meticulously cutting weight for advantages or campaigning in specific divisions where he has the best chances, but actively seeking the most challenging, dangerous fights possible regardless of weight class. This adds an entirely new, terrifying layer for potential opponents to consider, as they're not just facing the notorious one with all his skills, but potentially a bigger, stronger, more filled out and determined Conor who actively hunts for the toughest test the sport provides while playing no games and putting on no shows.
Are you going to get a career? It's real simple. It's real simple for Team McGregor. In this next fight, forget about the ticket sales, forget about the ratings. In this next fight, Conor McGregor.
This insight regarding Conor's renewed sincerity and credibility stemming from his indifference to weight classes and sheer competitive desire reveals the true fighter's spirit emerging from beneath layers of spectacle and celebrity. This isn't about circus acts or publicity stunts to sell pay-per-views, but legitimate primal hunger to test himself against the planet's best fighters. The massive overarching takeaway here involves big news everyone needs to hear, as you're going to get McGregor soon, with announcements coming much sooner than anticipated. This isn't mere speculation or rumor mongering, but a direct, almost prophetic statement of an imminent game-changing return that will shake the division. The clock now ticks relentlessly for every fighter who might find themselves in his crosshairs, waiting for that call as whispers of fear swell into collective shouts, because this comeback is no longer a distant dream, but a rapidly approaching reality, ready to engulf the entire sport. The ultimate overarching question hangs heavy in the air, weighing on everyone's mind about whether this represents a spectacular one-off final curtain call for a legend, or the genesis of a true sustained career resurgence lasting years. The final declaration cuts chillingly clear through all noise, as Conor McGregor must prove himself to the world once again. Forget the astronomical ticket sales, record-shattering ratings, and unparalleled hype machine surrounding his name. His legacy and career now hinge entirely on this next pivotal octagon performance. This immense crushing pressure isn't solely on Conor's shoulders, but reverberates profoundly throughout the entire division, affecting everyone. Who will stand across from him as he attempts reclaiming his throne? Who becomes the crucial stepping stone to his resurrection, or the ultimate spoiler forever etched in history as the man who ended McGregor? The stakes could not possibly be higher for everyone involved, and that in its purest form explains precisely why everyone is scared of the notorious Conor McGregor's return.